Hello, my name is Terry White, and welcome to 10 of my favorite iPhone tips and tricks. Tip number one, let's say you're relaxing, you're laying down in bed, you happen to be reading on your iPhone, and of course, you lean a little too far, next thing you know, the screen rotates. Well, that could be frustrating because, you didn't want the screen to rotate, you're right, concentrating right on what you were reading, and you don't want that to happen. Well, there's an easy fix for that. So let's bring up my email, for example, and let's say I'm reading that email and I tilt the screen a little too far. Oh, it rotates. Didn't want it to rotate, and of course you try and rotate it right back. Well, at the bottom of your iPhone, if you swipe up from the bottom of the screen, that'll bring up the control center. And in the control center, you've got screen rotation lock. That's the icon in the upper right-hand corner with the little circle and lock on it. So if I tap that icon, now the screen is locked. No matter how I turn my phone, it will not rotate until I turn that back off. To turn it back off, just swipe up again, tap the icon again, either swipe down or tap behind it, and it goes away. Tip number two, while we're in email, let's compose a new email, and this is more of a keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to go ahead and type, let's say, a sentence. Thanks for watching. And of course, at the end of that sentence, I want a period, space, shift to type the next sentence. So it starts off with a capital. Instead of typing 2 or 3 keys, just simply double tap the space bar. When you double tap the space bar, that'll put the period in, space, and put the shift down so that you can begin typing. Now, tip number 3, let's say you want the next thing you're going to be typing is going to have a number involved or a symbol. So I'm going to say this is number, and I want to say space number 1. Well, obviously I could tap the 1, 2, 3, tap a 1, then tap the letters again to get back to the alpha keyboard. Instead of having to do those 2 or 3 motions to get to this, since I know I just want to type a number and get right back to the alpha keyboard, you can do it all in one gesture. Instead of tapping the 1, 2, 3, simply hold the 1, 2, 3 and slide up without letting go to the number or symbol you want. When you let go after sliding up to that number or symbol, it will type the number or symbol and then take you right back to the alpha keyboard so you can keep typing your letters. So that's actually one of my favorite older tips for iOS. All right, so number 4, while we're here, let's say that we want to put in a photo. So I'm going to hit return a couple times, and I want to insert a photo. And of course, in the previous versions of the operating system, you'd have to go to the Photos app, find the photo you want, copy it, or start a new email from the photo. You couldn't really just insert one. Well, now you can. So if I tap where that blank line is, it gives me my select or copy or paste or whatever. And now you'll notice to the right of that is an arrow. If I tap the arrow, there's an insert photo or video. When I do insert photo or video, I can go ahead and grab the photo I want. There it is, choose it, and now I've got that photo in my email while I was composing the email. So I can keep typing, insert more photos or videos, and of course I can grab them from any album. So the next one, tip number 5. Let's say that we have an app that's misbehaving. Perhaps the app is quitting on you, or it's doing something weird, or it's locking up, or it's just not working the way it's supposed to. Well, every time you launch an app, that app is kind of still running in the background, even when you go to a different app or go back to the home screen. And so when you go right back to it, you really are going right back to it in the state that it was. You aren't really launching the app over again, unless you quit it first. So how do we quit an app? Well, this is actually part of the multitasking, and it changed in iOS 7. So now when I double tap the home button, that's the physical button at the bottom of your screen, it brings up the multitasking. So I can swipe back and forth between the apps that are running. And let's say settings, it's usually not one that's going to misbehave, but let's say it was. Well, if I want to get rid of any app or quit any app that's misbehaving, then all I do is go to the one that's misbehaving, so we can go find whichever one we want, and then swipe up on its page. So when I go all the way up, I've dismissed that app, and that app has now been quit. So now I can go back to the home screen or any other screen and launch that app again. And now I'm launching that app from scratch. I'm launching it fresh. So that is how to quit an app that's either misbehaving, taking up too much memory, using too much battery, whatever you think it's doing, it's weird. Or occasionally, sometimes people just like to quit apps that they know they aren't going to be using for a while because they don't want it doing anything in the background. So that's a quick way to do it. Okay, next up, number 6, how to take a photo without using the screen button. So for example, I'm going to launch my camera here, and my camera is pointed, here we'll launch it. My camera's pointed at my wall here. I've got a painting there, or a photo. And now, of course, we've got the on-screen button to take the photo. And of course, when you hand your camera to someone else to take a photo, they, for whatever reason, can't find that button. Well, you can always instruct them. Here's another way to snap a photo, or one for you when you don't want to have to look at the screen, is on the side of your phone, you've got your volume up and down. Well, if you press your up button, I just snapped a picture by feeling the button without having to look at the on screen because I know that that's the top button. So that's a quick way to snap a photo using the on-screen button. And by the way, as a bonus tip, you know those earbuds and remote that you got with your iPhone? Well, the remote part of it has a up button. So just squeezing that while this is plugged in will also snap a photo. So that is another way. And one of the things that one of my friends who just got an iPhone couldn't figure out because it's not obvious, how do you zoom? How do you zoom the camera? And there's no control for it right off the bat. However, if you go to pinch, like you're expanding a photo, I guess reverse pinch, that is also how you zoom the camera on the iPhone. And the minute you start zooming, you will then get a control to let you slide back and forth to zoom. So how to take a photo with the up volume button, and number 7, how to zoom the camera. Now, speaking of taking photos, what if you want to take a photo of whatever you're looking at on the screen? You're on a web page, you're on a social media site, and you just want to snap a picture of what's on the screen. You're in any app. Well, to do that, you've got 2 buttons. You've got the button on as your home screen, you've got the top on and off button. If you press those 2 together, you will hear the camera shutter, you will see the screen flash because you just took a picture of whatever was on the screen. And now that picture is on your camera roll, just like any other picture, to do whatever it is you want to do with it. Email it, post it on Facebook, whatever you want to do. All right, so that was how to take a screenshot, which is number 8. And now I'm going to use number 9, which is one of my favorite tips, voice control using Siri. When I want to set a reminder, but I don't have a specific time in mind. In other words, I want to do something 30 minutes from now. Well, instead of me looking, okay, that's 3:05, so that would be 3:35, and then having to go and set up a clock or a alarm for that, I can just tell Siri, do whatever it is in 30 minutes, or do whatever it is in 43 minutes, whatever time it would take. So, for example, hold down the home button. Wake me in 35 minutes.
Your alarm set for 3:40 p.m.
It does the math, it figures it out, sets the alarm. So if I don't want that alarm right now, I can just simply turn it off before I dismiss the screen so that Siri won't actually wake me or sound an alarm in 35 minutes. Okay, so that is using Siri. You can say things like, remind me in 20 minutes to do something, wake me in 22 minutes, or actually you can say, wake me at 4 p.m. or do something at 4 p.m. and then it will use that specific time. So you can do lots of voice control things with Siri that Siri will do the math and figure it out. All right, last but not least, number 10. I know people that sometimes are out of space on their iPhone and they just can't figure out what's taking up all the space. So they want to start deleting things, but they don't know what to delete. So for example, if I go to my settings, and in my settings, I go to General, and in General, the first thing people think, oh, About, that should tell me what's taking up all the room. And not really. About will tell you how much space you have left. It will tell you how many things you have, like how many songs and how many videos and how many photos, but it's really not telling me what's taking up the most room. So let's go back. So I'm going to hit General to go back, and you'll see near the bottom there's something called Usage. When I go to Usage, that will actually calculate all my apps, everything on my phone, and show me in size order what's taking up the most space. Now, depending on the size of your phone, this is a 64 gig iPhone, it might take a minute to do it. So I'm going to let it run. But while we're letting it run, I'm going to go ahead and talk about one extra bonus tip. You'll notice at the top right corner, it says I have 70% battery life. Where did that percentage come from? Well, that's also on this usage screen where it says battery percentage. You can turn that on because it's off by default. Normally it will just show you the battery icon, but not tell you what number. And to me, if I were just looking at that black and white icon, I don't know. I'm not looking at that close enough to know if is that 30% used or 40% used. I like to actually see a number in a percentage of how much time, or not time, but how much, battery life I've got left. So I've got 70% of the battery life left at this point, and that number, of course, will keep going down until I plug in. So we're going to let this cook for a second, and then we'll come right back to it so we can see what's taking up the space. All right, we're back. So now I can see that my photos really, my two top photo apps are really taking up almost 8-9 gigs worth of information. And maybe I'm okay with that, but wait a minute. Why is messages taking up 4 gigs, almost as much as the camera and Photos app? Well, here's a hidden tip. Every time you receive a text message, which is really an MMS message or an iMessage that has a photo or video or a little thing in it, all those little attachments that people are, texting you, well, unless you delete those messages or delete those attachments at least, they're being stored in the Messages app. So the more photos and videos you get over time, the more space it's going to take up on your phone, even if you have copied them to the Photos app. Unless you go back and delete them from the Messages app, the Messages app is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So 4 gigs is quite a bit. I need to go in there and clean up some old text messages that have attachments. File the photos away, copy them off the phone, delete them, whatever it takes. But that's a lot of space for text messages because they aren't just text messages anymore. They're photos and videos as well. So I hope you got something out of these 10 tips for iPhone. We'll come back and do some more, maybe for iPad and other tips and tricks for using your iOS devices. Thanks for watching. My name's Terry White.